So this is our third podcast. It's a bit different to the last one, isn't it?
It is. So in the last one, we promised that we would do a bit more of a deep dive into turbines and all the issues associated with that. And so that's what our focus is going to be in this podcast.
Turbines, it's a big thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So I just want to start by, I think, paying credit to those organisations who've given us information and helped us to become better informed. And particularly CPRW, the Campaign for the Protection of Rural Wales, who are doing a fantastic job. Small charity staffed by some really key people. And so really grateful to them for providing us with information. And so I want to start by talking a little bit about the map that has been produced by CPRW. So this map is on the website, and we'll probably flash up the website so that people can access that and have a look. And I do urge everyone to go into that map because it's interactive and it provides a huge amount of information about all the current plans for energy parks. And what this highlights is that we have a real problem. And the problem is one of scale. And we've talked a bit about this in the past, and in particular the industrialisation of rural Wales, which is not an exaggeration. You look at that map and you realise that actually, wow, this is crazy. There are, I think we're right in saying, about 70 current energy parks in planning. And again, we'll put a list up on the screen for people to look at, and you get a rough idea of these different energy parks.
Yes. Sorry to interrupt you, but in that list, so there are 70 parks, and each of those would, if it happens, contain what?
So either wind turbines or solar and or both.
And that's not just one wind turbine.
Good. Exactly. No, exactly. And if you match that up with the interactive map, you can see the number of turbines and solar farms and so forth in each of the parks. So there's a lot of detail available there.
They also, just looking at it briefly, these highlighted areas where these things are happening seem to also represent some of the quietest, least inhabited, wildest, most nature-rich places in Wales.
Yeah, exactly. Which I guess is what we're focused on. It's fair to say that there are plenty of energy parks that are down in the south and in the more urban areas as well. So it's not exclusively to do with Mid Wales and the Cambrian Mountains and so on. But I guess our focus has been on that. And because we're both from Carmarthenshire, we have tended to think a bit more about Carmarthenshire. And I think too, because North Carmarthenshire is particularly badly affected by these plans.
Right, okay. On to the second item that we've got in our list here. And we've got it down as the justification. So it's why and how they're justifying all this.
Yeah, sure. So this is in order to reach the net zero targets that have been set. And specifically in Wales, the Welsh Government have got a target of 70% of Welsh energy being generated from renewables. I think the current position is we're at 50%. So there's a bit further to go, 20% on the further.
It doesn't seem very much further to go.
Well, no, it doesn't, to be honest with you. And of course, the renewables would then include other non-carbon generating sources. So, for example, ultimately, nuclear will come in and take over from gas power. And so you'd think that categorises as renewables. So it's not just about turbines and solar. But I think they're sort of heavily focused on this approach and getting into bed with companies like Butte Energy in order to put up all these wind turbines because they think that is the best way to go. The developers, of course, want to make as much money out of this as possible. This is the wind gold rush, so a lot of this electricity will be exported to England and elsewhere in order to make profit for the developers. So I'm not sure much of it's going to really benefit Wales. Welsh energy, what does that mean? Energy produced within Wales, doesn't necessarily mean energy for the Welsh people. One of the things I was just going to mention, Andy, so there's obviously lots of kickback going on, and two particular politicians have been doing really well on this score. One is James Evans, who is the MS for Brecon and Radnorshire, and the other is David Chadwick, who's the MP for Brecon and Radnorshire. And I have to commend both of them for the work behind the scenes and in the various chambers, both Westminster and at the Senedd.
What about the construction of all this infrastructure?
So what's going on in Scotland is going to happen here if this goes ahead. So we're learning lessons from Scotland because they're one stage ahead of us at the moment. We've dug around for some images to get some idea of what this construction phase is going to look like. Actually, some of these images that we're going to show up on the screen are from Shetland, where they have been building 180 metre high turbines, so a good deal shorter than the 220, 230, the ones planned here. So there will be a scaling up even of that. I think 3 to 5 years, you've got to assume, for any of these energy parks to be built. So during that time, the scale of the disruption will be massive to the communities, both in the immediate vicinity, but also on the routes that these convoys of vehicles will have to take on the A roads and also on the minor roads to get to the sites. They're going to be using the roads that we use every day to go about our life. Exactly, and in Scotland it's been a nightmare, major traffic jams and all sorts of things, and Welsh roads are notoriously small and narrow and bendy. So I think that's going to be a big issue. The actual installation of the turbines involves huge amounts of concrete being installed, and I think 750 cubic metres for 200 metre turbines in Scotland. And I'm not a great scientist here, so 750 cubic metres will be more to people listening to this podcast than it might do to me, but that sounds like a huge amount of concrete. So then there's the whole thing about tree felling, which really saddens me to think that all the and we're not just talking about conifers here. They will have to fell natural deciduous
hundreds of year old oaks all right, going on from that, which we've touched on briefly, the whole thing about is this, are we being told the truth about how this is happening?
And I could just declare my position here, Andy, because I suppose for a long time I've thought, oh well, on the whole I'm in favour of renewables, and turbines included within that opinion. Now, I am still in favour of renewables, absolutely, but the right ones in the right places. And the more I research or have researched turbines, the less convinced I have become about the validity of using turbines on the scale that is being proposed here. Yeah. And so some people have said it's a bit of a con, to be honest. You know, you're made to feel good about a turbine on a hill. You might not particularly want it there, but you're thinking,
that's a silver bullet.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's worth having these turbines because we're saving the planet.
If you're calling them, you're saying a 230 metre tall turbine is green.
No, I don't think this is very green. I really don't. So let's just explore some of this. So one of the, I think, most striking statistics I've discovered is that these onshore turbines are only operating for an average of 38% of the year. Now, that's an average over all onshore turbines. So if you've got them up on the top of a mountain with more wind, then they're going to operate for more than 38%. But they're not operating for most of the year. This is the fact, that for most of the year, they are not operating. And, I'm thinking, well, how can that be an efficient way of generating electricity? So then you've got the other problem, which is that they're putting these turbines in inaccessible places. So in Scotland, up on the highlands and islands and in miles away from the grid. Same thing in Wales. The proposals are on our hills and mountains miles away from the grid. So you're generating electricity from all these turbines, and then when the wind blows strongly, there's too much electricity, and the grid can't cope. So the grid's not fit for purpose. Well, there basically is no grid in the middle of Wales and in the middle of the Highlands of Scotland. So you're thinking, well, isn't that a bit of a stupid way to do it? They're thinking the wrong way round. Surely they should be saying, let's put our renewable energy sources close to the grid. And then we don't have this issue. We're not going to have the problem of overloading the grid. So what's happening with these turbines is that the government has to pay billions of pounds in what are called constraint payments. And for those who are not clear on this, when turbines have to be switched off because there is an overload, the grid can't cope, then that is a constraint payment which the government pays to the developer. And I have a figure here of it is currently in the UK costing £4.3 million per day. £4.3 million per day. So we are talking billions of pounds which goes straight into the pockets of developers because the grid can't cope, turbines have to be switched off. Who's paying for this? You and me, Andy. We're paying. Anyone who pays electricity bills, we're paying for it because this all comes from the taxpayer in the form of subsidies. So basically, I think it is a con. Because you look at a turbine, you think, oh, goody, it's turning around, it's making lots of electricity, and you're making money, and you think, actually, it's so inefficient, and it's so unfair, because we have very, very high energy bills. And the bad thing at the moment is that the government in Westminster are busy negotiating new contracts going into the future, and they are locking in current prices and current constraint payments. And so Ed Miliband talks about electricity bills coming down in 2030. They're not going to. They're not going to come down. There's no chance of that. So this isn't just you and I on our podcast coming up with stuff. So I think it was a couple of weeks ago that there's a parliamentary energy committee sitting at the moment, and the bosses of all the leading energy companies were giving evidence. And we're talking Octopus, Centrica, EDF, OVO, all these companies, and they were giving evidence to the parliamentary committee that they were drawing attention to this very point, and they were saying that bill payers are not getting any benefit from falling gas and oil prices. That there is a fall at the moment, and one hopes that in future there will be less, but none of that benefit will go through to bill players because of these subsidies. So yeah, what you're saying is true. This is evidence which is coming from those who are at the top of the industry, who know what they're talking about, and I think there is an element of denial or turning a blind eye to these statistics from those who are pursuing net zero ideology. And I use that phrase cautiously because we like the idea of net zero because we want to save the planet. Yeah. But it has become an ideology where politicians from certain parties are pursuing it despite the evidence which says it may not be the right policy, and pragmatism needs perhaps to be applied more appropriately.
And maybe out of fashion, out of date things like saving electricity, not using as much, not needing as much, and modesty in this. Why do we have to go for these massive solutions, which are basically being driven by organisations who are in it for the profit?
This is the thing. This is exactly the point. And that's what's driving this. This is the motivation from these development companies. And were it not for the subsidies, I don't think anyone would be investing in wind turbines.
No.
I honestly don't, because they're inefficient, they're nowhere near the grid, they're creating a shed load of problems, and they are going to destroy communities. And that's not an exaggeration. They are going to destroy communities. And we're going to come on in a second and talk about health risks and so on and so forth, and livelihoods. Yeah.
Well, let's do that. Let's move into number 5, the environmental damage, and we've got a list. I don't think we're intending to go into this in detail in this podcast, but Yeah, I'll leave you with the list.
Yeah, I think so. I think we'll do a bit more of a deep dive into these issues on a subsequent podcast. But they have said, oh, we're not going to destroy peat bogs. We're not going to go anywhere near peat bogs. That's a lie. They are. And peat bogs are, of course, a highly efficient way of storing carbon. So why would you want to destroy the very thing which is helping save the planet? It's a complete contradiction. Locally to the Lampeter schemes, just north of Pimside, there is a colony of red squirrels, and that's actually very rare for Wales. And there is a energy park that is destined to be built within that colony. So there's real concerns about that.
Red squirrels.
Red squirrels. I think the effect on birds, the effect on drainage basins, we were mentioning this in the last podcast, but the volume of concrete and so on and so forth will affect microplastics. So there is clear evidence that the leading edge of the turbine blades erodes as a result of usage in the wind, and the microplastics that are being eroded off those edges are becoming a big pollution problem. One hopes that they will come up with a solution, but at the moment that is certainly an environmental risk. So there are some ideas of environmental damage.
This kind of makes you think that it's really important for everyone, including people who don't do politics, they just live their lives quietly. But this is a real call to action, isn't it?
Yeah. It absolutely is. Yeah.
But the other one that's come up and is becoming very, very important is the health risks. You see some turbines on a hilltop and they're turning, and you think, right, well, that's fine. What is it that they are doing?
So we've always known that there is a sound effect produced by turbines which could cause health risks, but there has been recent research on infrasound effects from turbines.
So what's infrasound?
Well, infrasound is very low frequency sound which is inaudible to the human ear. I think the animal kingdom may be able to hear it, but you and I would not be able to. And it can travel long distances, and it can travel through buildings, and turbines produce infrasound. And these large turbines that are planned will produce considerable infrasound waves. And it's like a pulse. And as the turbine blade turns, it compresses air, and when it passes the shaft of the turbine, it creates a pulse. And that pulse then travels long distance. And the health risk is to the brain. And it can cause, if you are susceptible, it can cause serious health issues, migraines, headaches, and associated illnesses, bodily illnesses that are affected by that. And I think it's a bit of a time bomb, this. So just to give some credit to the Save This Land organisation, it's a website, Save This Land, and Tim Smith, who I've been in touch with, and he has put together some very clear information about this. We've got one shot from a PowerPoint he's prepared, which we've got up on the screen, which gives a bit of a summary of the effects of this infrasound. Particular research coming out of Sweden. And of course, Sweden have had these big turbines for some time, so they've got gathered lots of evidence. Professor Ken Mattsson from Uppsala University has been particularly influential in producing this research. Some people may have seen a video which has gone pretty viral from Ireland, from Galway, where there is clear evidence of infrasound affecting the community, and people who farm locally who have had to sell their farm, leave their farm, move because their health has been so badly affected by it. So I think this will happen more, and I think they are saying these huge turbine energy parks of this sort will end up destroying communities. Communities will just become sort of desert areas because no one will be able to live in the vicinity of these turbine parks.
So thinking about it in terms of legal things, if what you've got is a situation where some organisation's going to come along and install something that is going to make where you live uninhabitable because it's dangerous to live there, surely there must be some legal protection against that.
Well, you'd have thought so. What it makes me think is how are they going to insure these energy parks? Because if this evidence gathers and there is a test case, for example, it's a bit like the asbestos issues in the 1970s and 80s, which cause all sorts of problems in the insurance industry, huge costs to the insurance industry. Could infrasound in the future become an asbestos, a health risk where people are seeking a compensation for damaged health and so forth? Those in power need to stop this madness. They need to halt it. They need to say, hang on a minute, this doesn't seem right. Many people have said enough is enough. Wales, Mid Wales, countryside is already doing a lot for renewables. And actually, I'm left thinking, is it worth it? Is it that extra 20% of renewables? Is it worth losing so much, sacrificing so much, endangering people's health, communities? It's high risk. I regard it as high risk. In 20, 30 years' time, the next generation, you and I fear, may be dead and gone by then, Andy, but the next generation, my grandchildren, what will they be thinking about us? What will they think about our politicians to have pursued this crazy approach to renewable energy when there are alternatives?
Okay, the costs to the community of all this.
Yeah, I think these have been quite well covered previously, but obviously just to mention tourism, loss to tourism, the loss to property blight that's now hitting these places. And the other thing is dark skies. We haven't said a lot about dark skies, but these big turbines will have flashing lights, red lights on the top. In fact, we've got quite a good image of just such a turbine. And dark skies are precious. There aren't that many places in the UK where you can have genuine dark skies, but you can in Mid Wales. And I think that these turbines are going to destroy that.
Yeah, people travel from all over the place to experience the dark skies in our backyard.
Yeah.
Where would we like this to go from here?
So I think what I hope we've achieved in this podcast is to take the lid off the wind turbine con. I'm going to use that phrase.
All right.
Okay. But I think to make it clear that all is not well with turbines, that there are serious shortfalls, there are serious issues, and those in power need to stop this madness. They need to halt it. They need to say, hang on a minute, this doesn't seem right.
It's not about the technology. A wind turbine is just a thing. It's the people who do it, who put these things in the wrong places and in the wrong way and in the wrong amounts and quantities of these things. Yeah. It's the people behind all this that are making an enormous mistake that will affect future generations in our country.
Yeah. I hope that people who are listening and watching this will feel that we are approaching things in an even-handed way and that we are evidence-based. And I'm a historian, and I've always taught, I'm a teacher by trade and a historian, and I've always taught that you need to follow the evidence. And I hope people feel we are doing that. And that's certainly the approach that we've tried to adopt here, is what is the evidence? Tell us about these things. Are they a good thing or are they not a good thing? Yeah. And in my journey, I have ended up, as obviously it's pretty obvious from all the things I've said just now, I've ended up thinking, well, actually, they're not a good thing. And we've certainly got enough of them already.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And if anyone has any opinions, the email address is at the end of the podcast. Please do let us know if there's anything you would like us to explore or deep dive into. I think that's the term now. Mm-hmm. Then just let us know. And in the meantime, thank you very much for watching.